Hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for our webinar on beating the heat in your cold storage facilities with LED lighting and controls. My name is April Lisenby and I will be your moderator today. We're going to start off today's webinar with a video case study of the cold storage warehouse that actually inspired this webinar. That will give everyone time to jump onto the webinar and allow you to adjust your sound settings. Then we'll get started with the webinar. So please enjoy the Preferred Freezer video case study.
Preferred Freezer Services builds, designs, and operates cold storage facilities. Our facility is -5 degrees in the freezer, 38 degrees on the dock.
Typically the dock is rather dark, especially with the fluorescent lights. You're more susceptible to having an injury on the dock. The guy can crash into somebody else that he doesn't see.
We talk about quality every day at Preferred Freezer Services. You have people that need to be able to see what we call lot numbers or barcodes that are on products. So we select product based on that identification. Being able to see that is incredibly important. The more clear it is, the better we get at making sure our customers get exactly what they want. So it's a quality play for us to make sure that our people can appropriately see inside the freezer and on the dock.
Now, a metal halide light or a high-pressure sodium light gives off immense heat. So you have 300 of these lights in the freezer, you can see how much BTUs they're producing, and it affects your cooling capacity. Our refrigeration systems have to run harder.
Return on investment is definitely part of our thought process to go LED. Doing the right thing from a green standpoint is part of the decision, but economics also play into it. We were able to identify Acuity as the perfect solution for us, worked with the engineers at Acuity. Just to give you some perspective on what the return looks like from Preferred Freezer Services standpoint, it was about a year payback or less, depending on the location. So the decision was not a tough decision once we understood what the numbers were.
I like Acuity brands. I mean, anytime we place an order for a building, we order a lot of lights at once. All the lights arrived, all the hangers arrived. Everything came when it was promised, and everything was there we needed.
We've had a long-standing partner that has helped us for years, and that's Liberty Lighting. We've had a great relationship, building new locations, retrofitting existing locations, and partnered with them to figure out what's right for Preferred.
We really noticed the biggest change once we started to do the transition, and we started in the dock, and overnight the dock was lit up. As each aisle would go on, you could see more. It was a lot easier to operate.
The main advantages for us are just the simple fact that the dock is that much brighter, it's safer, it looks cleaner.
There's a lot more of a concert that happens on that dock as people are loading, unloading trucks, and drivers are walking through, and it's a lot easier to see and a lot safer environment.
One of the biggest benefits from a quality standpoint is the clarity that you have both on our loading dock and in our freezer. From my perspective, it's a whiter light. When you walk into one of our older freezers that doesn't have the LED, there's like a yellowish hue to it, and it's a darker hue. And then you walk into the freezers that have been converted, and it's a white, crisp. You can see the numbers on those cases much more clear.
For us right now, the only maintenance that we ever have to do is to go up and just clean the light fixtures themselves.
We weren't calling in a scissor lift to go 65 feet up in the air to actually change these things out. And also, you don't have to worry about changing them for a considerable period of time, and the cost overall is cheaper because you're not using as much electricity.
And when you have the right location that's clean, that has that lighting that contributes to that clean feel, when a customer pulls up to our facility, you're proud to show them that facility.
I think there's a huge difference with the lighting. We have customers stop by. We take pride in showing the building, showing especially a brand new facility like this.
We have customers that visit all the time, whether they're returning customers or new customers. We're very proud to walk them through and kind of pound our chest a little bit. The brighter the building, the more they're able to see how clean and wonderful it looks. We try to put forth kind of a bright attitude, a bright, happy attitude, with also the bright building helps to kind of solidify how good the brand looks to the customer.
We pride ourselves in trying to be a green company, so everything is much more cleaner with LED lighting, trying to do better for the environment.
And making the environment a better environment to work is something that's on our agenda every day. And you can walk into a facility and you feel better when you're walking into a nice, bright, well-lit location. It just feels good coming to work every day when you have that kind of environment.
All right, well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us for our cold storage webinar. As I mentioned, my name is April Lisenby, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. On your screen in front of you, you should be seeing several widgets. On the top left is a Q&A widget. In there, you can type in any questions that you may have at any time, and we'll answer as many as we can get to before the end of the webinar. There's a media widget below that so you can hear us, but then there's also the speaker bio and his contact information so you can connect with Justin on LinkedIn or send him an email. The big one in the center, well, that's where you can see the presentation itself. Hopefully you can see that. And finally, there is a survey. If you have to jump off early, please take a moment to answer those 4 questions on the survey, and that will help us continue to bring you great webinars. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons going from left to right. These are Help, Slides, Media Player, Q&A, Speaker Bio, and Survey. You can minimize any of the widgets on your screen to get more space by clicking once on its icon below. When you're ready to retrieve that widget, simply click on the appropriate icon on the bottom of your screen and it will pop back up. The final housekeeping item, a recording of this webinar will be available to those of you who have registered for this webinar, and we'll email you that information sometime tomorrow. So that covers the basic housekeeping. I know Justin's excited to get started, so let's get right to it. Today's presenter is Justin Moon. Justin has been in the lighting industry for almost 10 years now. He's worked with industrial customers to develop some of the QD's most innovative industrial products. And in the process, he's spoken with literally thousands of facility owners, managers, workers, including those at cold storage warehouse facilities. It's my pleasure to welcome Justin Moon.
Thank you, April, and good afternoon and good morning to everyone. Thank you for attending today. I know an hour of your time is important, so we're going to try to keep this as interactive, as engaging as possible. First off, it is August in Georgia, and I can tell you that I am ready to beat the heat myself. It is hot. Fortunately, it's raining right now here, but if it weren't, I would want to be in a cold storage warehouse right now because it is much cooler than Georgia. But obviously, you didn't come here to hear about Georgia's weather, so let's find out what we're going to talk about today. Beating the heat with LED lighting and controls. We're going to look at the 4 ways traditional lighting costs you. Then we're going to look at how LED lighting improves your cold storage warehouse operations. And then finally, we're going to touch on how using controls boosts operational efficiencies. So let's get to it. So in section 1, go ahead and grab a notebook if you want to take some notes. We're going to look at those 4 ways. So what are those 4 ways? Jump right to it. Traditional lighting consumes a lot of energy, generates a lot of heat, and honestly, it's probably more than you think, can emit less light in the cold, and finally is a hassle to maintain. We're going to deep dive each one of these and give you a lot of good information to take back. Starting with cold storage warehouses use a lot of energy. This is Mark. Mark is going to kind of be our guide during this webinar. Say hey to Mark there in the bottom of the screen. And Mark's not happy. Mark knows that cold storage warehouses, especially his, use a lot of energy. There was a study done by the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy that found refrigerated warehouses have one of the highest electric energy usage intensities in the entire commercial building sector. Their electric usage often ranges from 40 to 60 kilowatt hours per square foot, with refrigeration accounting for nearly half or more of that. And honestly, with that kind of information, Mark is tired of sending so much of his budget over to the utility companies, right? He wants to kind of focus on those solutions that keep some of that money in his own budget and take strategies that can combat some of those things that he deals with, especially peak demand prices in certain markets and wasted energy. So with that kind of monthly operating cost, electricity is about 25% of the monthly operating cost, typically in a cold storage environment. And that's broken down mainly into, I would say, two different ways. You have your kind of other electrical costs, and then refrigeration and lighting make up the bulk of that. That's the biggest components of that 25%. And we're going to focus on that a little bit going forward in here. So what are some of those ways that the traditional lighting uses more energy? First off, we're going to start with HID. This generally ranges from 400 watt to 1,000 watt and is typically seen in the freezer area where the temperatures are lower. One 400 watt fixture uses 11 kilowatts per hour in a 24-hour time frame. That is a lot of energy for just one single fixture. Obviously, if you have the 1,000 watt, you're going to be a little bit more than that. This is up to 458% more than the LED solution would put out. Looking at fluorescent, and again, these use way more energy. These are typically found in the dock area where the temperatures are a little bit higher. Ranges anywhere from 4 lamp T8 to 6 lamp T5 is generally what we see in traditional cold storage applications. One 6 lamp T5 HO fixture uses 9 kilowatts per hour in a 24-hour standpoint. That's up to 365% more than the LED solution. Even where energy is cheap, that is still some big money being spent powering traditional lighting technologies. So now that we've looked at energy and we've seen that the traditional technologies are using substantially more, we're going to dive into a little bit of those heat generating items and looking at how it can emit more heat. So do you know the top 3 heat generating items in a cold storage warehouse are people, lighting, obviously, and the environment. So we're going to look specifically at the heat generated by lighting, but towards the end we'll also discuss some of the solutions that can manage some of the environment and the building as well. So now we're going to take a look at that HID system. One 400 watt fixture in 24-hour time period emits 37,373 BTUs of heat. Over a year, the chiller will have to remove 12 million BTUs of energy from one fixture alone. That's enough energy to melt over 43 tons of ice. So I'm sure most of you do not have just one HID fixture in your cold storage warehouse. So multiply that 12 million number by however many you have, and you could see that you're talking about some serious BTUs of heat being generated by HID, all of which your chiller is going to need to remove to keep your environment cold. But what about fluorescent? You know, you always hear fluorescent is a lot more efficient, so let's check out that one. One 6 lamp T5 HO fixture in 24 hours emits 29,000 BTUs of heat. So over a year, the chiller will have to remove 9 million BTUs of energy from one fixture alone. That's enough energy to melt over 34 tons of ice. And again, multiply that by how many of these types of fixtures you have in your facility, And you could be talking billions of BTUs of energy alone that your chiller needs to remove every single year to keep the stuff cold. As you saw in the video, Preferred Freezer kind of honed in on this heat as well. You can see this quote by Brian. A metal halide light or a high pressure sodium light gives off immense heat. So you have 300 of these lights in the freezer. You can see how many BTUs they're producing, and it affects our cooling capacity. The refrigeration systems have to run harder. All right, take that 300 times the 12 million back there on the HID, and now you've got 3.6 billion BTUs of heat that you've got to remove. That's some big, big numbers. So we've looked at energy, we've looked at heat. Let's check out quality of light. On your HID system, typically going to take at least 15 minutes to start up to get to up to 100%. If everybody remembers the Super Bowl back in New Orleans, you'll remember when the lights went out and it took a kind of a second halftime there to get the lights back up to 100%. That's typically what happens on your HID system. In a cold environment, they will be able to achieve 100% lumen output. They'll just take a little bit of time. Unfortunately, they cannot be cycled on off really ever, right? Every time you want to turn them off, they're going to need that cycle time to get back up. What about fluorescent? Again, in a cold environment, typically you're going to have 15 minutes start time just to get it to the top kind of lumen range that a fluorescent fixture will be able to put out in a cold environment. And typically that can only achieve about 25 to 50% of the rated lumen output of the lamp. And it really does struggle with the frequent on-off cycling in the cold environments. Even in that dock area that you saw Preferred talking about in 38 degrees, if you look at the typical lamp ambient chart at 38 degrees, most lamps are going to be putting out between 25 and 50% of their rated lumens. So automatically you're going to have upwards of 50 to 75% less light. So you're either going to need more fixtures, or you're going to be relamping a lot, or you're just not going to have enough light to get the task done safely. And this is really one of the areas that Preferred Freezer really honed in on, was the quality. Typically in the dark, in the dock area, it's rather dark, especially with the fluorescent lights. You can see the photo there of what that kind of looked like. You know, having trouble seeing lot numbers, more susceptible to injuries on the dock and crashing into certain people. So maintenance or quality was an area that they honed in on of making things better. And finally, maintenance. I can tell you one thing, Mark does not like maintenance. When your environment is at or below freezing, the last thing you want to do is go up there and maintain light fixtures. All right, you got to pay for the scissor lift. You got to block off the aisleway, which is going to affect your productivity. You got to call in the maintenance crew, and you got to get up there and get the new either HID or fluorescent light bulbs. All of that's going to be costing you money. To think that you got to have a scissor lift to go 65 feet in the air just to change out a lamp or a ballast. In a lot of cases, you're going to be doing yearly maintenance on your HID fixtures. And that's not something, honestly, I'm sure you want to do. On the fluorescent side, you may have to be doing yearly as well, especially if you want to maintain the right light levels to get the job done. So a quick poll, try to keep this a little interactive. Of the 4 ways traditional lighting costs you money, which one do you believe is the most important? Take about 7 to 10 seconds to fill out this poll real quick, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of those solutions and get into some of that. So you can see some of the responses there. 40%, they use a lot of energy. 60% of the heat. That's typically what I would expect to see, right? Your one job in a cold storage environment is to keep stuff cold. If anybody's ever seen those memes that say you had one job, it's a really fun experience to go Google that. But that's exactly what you have in a cold storage environment is you have one job, and that's to keep stuff cold. So let's look at in section 2 how LED improves your operation. So after looking at these facts, Mark had an idea. He wanted to learn more about how LED can save him money. So we're going to look at it right off the bat in those 4 distinct ways once again. So, using the same exact facts and figures, you remember just a second ago we talked about how much energy HID uses per day per fixture, 11 kilowatts. The 6 lamp T5 is going to use 9 kilowatts. So jumping over to how LED uses less energy, a 100 watt LED high bay uses about 2 kilowatts per fixture per day. That's up to 78% in energy savings alone. So right there, you can see the kind of the hard facts, and we'll get into some of these solutions in a little bit. But right there, you can see that these savings are pretty substantial going from these traditional technologies to the LED solution. Looking at LED produces less heat, it's really your ally, right? If heat is the enemy within, LED lighting is going to be your ally in facing this this foe. One fixture in 24 hours on the HID, again 37,000. You can see the stats there of the 12 million a year per HID fixture, 9 million a year per fluorescent fixture. Let's check out LED. So that 100 watt fixture in 24 hours, 8,100 BTUs of heat. Over a year, you're looking at 2.6 million BTUs of heat per fixture. And again, it's pretty much correlation there. Up to a 78% reduction in the heat emitted from your fixtures. To think about that, your refrigeration system does not have to remove up to 10 million BTUs per fixture when you go to the LED solution. That is extreme savings in my opinion. When you save 78% on the energy side, and now you're removing 78% of the heat generated from your lighting system. If you remember back to that slide where Mark was paying the utility company a lot of money, now you're going to be paying them a lot less and keeping those dollars in your own budget. But what about quality? So you remember that both HID and fluorescent have 15-minute start times. HID can end up achieving 100% lumen output. Typically, your fluorescent system is not going to get there. With your LED system, right? LEDs are instant on all the way to their full lumen output. In this case, in a cold storage environment, LEDs actually appreciate in the cold. Sometimes you could see 10% greater lumens in a cold storage environment than you would in a typical kind of room temperature or a higher ambient. And it has no issues with the constant on-off, right? LEDs don't care if you turn them off every minute of every single day. They're going to respond reliably, and they're going to always have that reliable operation. And that's something that you can rely on in the future. And this is one of the areas that Preferred Freezer really loved about their decision to go LED. One of the things, in addition to what Dan said there, is when you walk into the freezers that have been converted, it's white, crisp. You could see the numbers on those cases much more clearly, and that quality benefit really helps our business. And so really honing in on quality was a big deal for Preferred Freezer. They're able to see the lot numbers better, and the environment got rid of the yellowish hue that they had in their dock area and got it to a nice white, crisp environment. And lastly, LED requires less maintenance, which is pretty obvious. So Mark would rather have his crew working on other areas of the business rather than changing lights. LED's extremely long life in cold environment enable years of little to no maintenance. So now this old checklist of scissor lifts and blocking off aisles is no longer with LED. And that was, again, one of those areas that Preferred really focused in on. Brian liked that there's very little to no maintenance on the LED system. No more maintenance trips to change out bulbs. And effectively, you can kind of throw away that old traditional maintenance list and have your crew working on other areas of the business. Let's check out another poll. So which of the following best describes your number one reason for switching or considering switching to LED? Take a few seconds, I'll read them off. So you've got to remember those: energy savings, heat reduction, improve the quality of light, or the maintenance savings. Those are some good answers. Obviously, you saw that 78% of energy savings is a big deal, followed by the heat reduction. And again, that's typically what I would expect is, you hear so much about how much LED saves on the energy side and how much it can reduce the heat. So those are good information. All right, so what does Acuity do differently? So you've seen what LED does in terms of those 4 ways of how it combats the traditional lighting. But what does Acuity do differently? So focus on kind of 4 key areas. So you want to minimize the cost of ownership with fully integrated network LEDs, intelligent controls, got your software monitoring and operation, and all kind of packaged up in this A+ certification that Acuity has that kind of fully guarantees that this solution is going to work together and give you the reliable operation that you need to have in your specific operation. So we're going to look more about that networked LED system. So it's always great when you're able to talk about new LED high bays that are launching, and I'm happy to discuss the brand new LED high bay that we recently launched. It's the Lithonia Lighting iBeam IBG. So it's a very versatile high bay. It boasts a single base platform designed with the ability to select performance, optics, housing options, which takes the IBG from basic applications to kind of more complex environments. And the result is kind of the maximum performance you need at the lowest possible cost. So you no longer have to figure out which fixture you need. You only need to figure out what spec you need, and then you're able to take the IBG and make that happen in your specific space. So what does that look like in a cold storage environment? Well, the IBG has multiple lumen package. I believe it's 9, ranging from 8,000 lumens all the way up to 60,000 lumens. And I'll give you a chart here in just a minute. You essentially have one platform that can replace all the high bay lighting in your space, right? From the 2-lamp T5HO that you may have all the way to the 1,000-watt HID, not the 100-watt HID that I have on my slide. That will be a 1,000-watt HID. So again, that one platform to give you the configurability and the options that you need to take one family all across your space. And then the life and performance. This one really offers game-changing efficiency. And again, the unparalleled life that you're going to get, and especially in a cold storage environment, are going to give you many years of flexible and efficient lighting. The other thing that it offers here is you're going to have a more dust-resistant fixture than in the past with the optics that are provided here, especially the frosted optics. You're going to have very smooth quality illumination. You're going to have a very dust-resistant fixture, so there's nothing's going to really build up inside the fixture. And it was designed with the future in mind of really being able to go and future-proof a fixture. And you can see there the different sizes that we've already shown. This is the narrow version that really fits in very narrow aisles. And you've got a lot of options for cold storage. Specifically, focus optics enable you to get the right amount of light on task in narrow aisles at high mounting heights. So we have a very focused distribution that now can get up to, I would say, 40, 50 foot mounting heights and really be able to punch that light down and get it down there on the task, especially when a lot of cold storage facilities, sometimes you have 50, 60 foot mounting heights. And so we've got the optics to be able to get that light down. And then obviously the temps for cold storage are going to be huge. This is ideal in environments as low as negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. And then if you have, perhaps you have unconditioned spaces elsewhere in your network, it will also work up to 55 C as well. So let's look a little bit more about that game-changing efficiency. So here's a quick table that gives you the 9 lumen packages. And you're going to see two things that we're going to talk through here: your standard wattage in lumens per watt, and then your premium wattage in lumens per watt. And so let's take a typical 18,000 lumen version. That's the one I used in the calculations a little bit early on. So in your standard wattage, you're going to have 112 watts. That's going to get you about 160 lumens per watt. And on your premium, you're going to have 100 watts, giving you 183 lumens per watt. Now, the great thing about this fixture is that all these values are with an 80 CRI 5000K diffuse or frosted lens in your general distribution. So now with this product, you no longer have to sacrifice visual comfort and efficiency. That's always been kind of an either-or decision you've had to make with high bay lighting. You know, do you want the greatest efficiency, or do you want to have the visual comfort, right? Staring up at bare LEDs when you're 30 or 40 foot mounting heights, you know, that can get kind of blinding in a lot of cases. And so with the IBG, we really wanted to push the envelope of being able to provide that perfect quality illumination and giving you the best-in-class efficiency. And 183 lumens per watt on your premium side is something that's unrivaled in the industry today. One of the reasons we went with 2 different wattages that you can select, there's a lot of cases and a lot of utility rebates that are able to get more dollars to have a premium type of lumens per watt. And so we wanted to have that availability in certain areas. And we expect fully, right, most people are probably going to go with the standard since it's still best in class, but in able to kind of achieve some of those rebates or in certain areas, you can specify the premium wattage and get that premium LPW. And again, going after the configurable nature of the IBG, we only want you to pay for exactly what you want, right? We don't want you to pay for anything else than what you exactly want. Last thing on the IBG is going to look at some of those configurations. So the compact for ease of install, and it grows with your lumen output. The great thing about this one is that your 2-foot version goes from your 8,000 lumens all the way up to your 30,000 lumen version is going to be in that 2-foot version, which really helps on the installation, speeds that installation. You have less waste now. On your 4-foot version, if you need your narrow version, that's going to be less than 12 inches wide, works really well in very narrow aisles. That goes from 18,000 lumens to 36,000 lumens. And then your 4-foot version goes, again, on a more traditional 6 module, is going to go from 36,000 lumens up to your 60,000 lumen. That's going to be your perfect 1,000 watt HID replacement. And that's going to save you a lot of energy against 1,000 watt. So obviously your space has more than just high bays. So let's look at some of those things that'll round out that solution. You obviously have office lighting, whether it's going to be your troughers or your downlights. You're going to have your area lighting on the outside to get your truck yards and your loading dock areas, flood lighting and wall mount. You know, Acuity offers, say, best-in-class solutions all across the board in these areas that really round out the portfolio. As you saw with Preferred Freezer, they rounded out the portfolio in every area with LED lighting as well, and they had a great great experience, especially on the outdoor illumination that they were able to achieve. Now we're going to look at section 3. We're going to look at how controls boost the efficiencies of these LED systems and the different strategies. But first, quick poll again. Try to keep this interactive and engaging. Which of the following best describes your #1 reason for adding controls or considering adding controls in the facility? Got a few seconds, I'll read them. Increase those energy savings, increase the life of the fixture. Maybe you want to increase flexibility or strictly code compliance. Increase energy savings, that's absolutely what they do, and we've got some strategies that are going to show that. Flexibility is a big deal, and the other one, code compliance, that's actually a very trending topic right now as more and more local and I would say state, local, and sometimes even national codes are requiring the use of controls more and more, especially in industrial type spaces. So what do controls do with these 4 specific ways we've been looking at? Well, on the energy saving side that LED boosts, controls boost those savings even more by turning the lights off or dimming to reduce the wattage. Right? With heat reduction, if you're turning the lights off and dimming to reduce the wattage, you're also going to be reducing your heat, right? Because now you're reducing the power needed, again, by turning the lights on, off, or dimming. Controls do get you better quality because now you're able to put the right amount of light where and when it's needed, and that really helps in certain environments across time. If you can program the controls to give you different light levels in different scenarios. And obviously less maintenance. Controls, by turning it off or dimming, are going to increase the life of the fixture, which reduces the amount of future maintenance that you have to do. All right, so what are some different strategies? Fixture level is one. There's a lot of different components that you can do that really drive the fixture level. It's very simple to implement. You can maximize the savings, but it can get kind of complicated unless you set it and forget it. You can use grouping strategies. Now you can group by zones or different tasks maybe. Maybe you want to group aisles together and group your dock area together. Scheduling, I would say work schedules change a lot. Maybe you've got certain holidays or certain very busy periods that come in, so really being able to drive down to get custom schedules, those really enhance savings over time. You can do custom dimming schedules, custom time schedules based on who's going to be in the space. And then finally, task tuning. This ensures that you're getting the optimal amount of light on the task when it's needed. So if your tasks change, you can then go in there and tune your lighting to really what's going on in the space. So let's look at a little bit about those lighting controls components and what you want to look for. So first, you want something that's going to be integrated, right? These multiple parts make one cohesive solution rather than piecing together multiple parts for multiple people. Now you've got this integrated solution that comes to you ready to go. You do want it to be flexible, right? You want to easily implement the strategies as needed. And then you need it simple. You want to commission and configure your space simply. So looking right there at sensors, those are going to increase the savings and the luminaire life by turning it off. You've got the right sensor options are built for kind of warehouse spaces with Acuity. So you've got high and low ceiling options. You've got multiple patterns available. There's an aisleway sensor, so you really be able to maximize those savings. And sensors today can dim. They can do on-off. You can group them together in certain areas. But to really enhance it is going to be on your network side. So the network controls are built, again, integrated inside to the fixture, so there's really nothing else you got to do about it. And that's where you could boost the savings. You can apply with codes a little bit easier. You've got a reliable network, and now you've got this very flexible system that goes across your operation, and you really have everything at the palm of your hand to make decisions in real time with your lighting system. And to do that, we utilize the Acuity Controls Sensor View software. The great thing about this software is it can cover everything inside the interior of your space. So now your office lighting and your high bays or your low bays or your strip, all of that can be networked together inside one software platform. And now you can control and zone different types of fixtures. You can group everything together very simply inside the software. You do the scheduling a lot easier if you want normal, holiday, or event, or after hours. It's very simple to go in and configure sensor settings. So maybe you want to really dial it in and take data back with you and dial in what you want to do on the sensor. It's very easy to pull up different fixtures or groups and change the dimming levels and the time delays to optimize the energy usage. This does give you handheld control, so you can control everything from your smartphone or your tablet. The best part about this is that you can report and analyze, you can verify historical system operations and monitor usage trends, and then you can monitor your live status as well, so you get kind of actionable data from this that you can go make better decisions in the future. So that's the best part on the lighting control side. Where this really starts to get exciting and kind of future-proof your building even more is going with the unified solution that takes your lighting controls, your building controls, your lighting, and then couples that all into a graphical interface that really helps you control your lighting, your HVAC, some different sensors across your building. Take door sensors for cold storage, for example, if you want to have alerts that, hey, your dock door's been open too long, or somebody forgot to close something, or maybe even some different types of sensors around there. You get this consistent user experience across the operation. You are future-proof, so that's a good thing today, is that you can install this, and then as different technologies happen over time, specifically kind of the industrial Internet of Things, you'll have little to no change in your building control platform. And all this is built on that A+ certification for a smart building I was talking about earlier, that we can guarantee that all this stuff is going to work together. So in closing, we looked at those 4 ways that traditional lighting is costing you money, and how LED improves that, right? With the energy savings, it reduces your heat, gives you better quality and less maintenance. And then the controls really boost your savings. They can help you reduce heat, give you a flexible system. And all of this will help you make an impact, just like Mark right there was able to make an impact as well. So we've looked at a lot of good information over the last about 40 minutes. Real quick, what could be your next step coming out of here? You know, all of us, how we're going to have a next step. You probably got a meeting at 2 o'clock. You may have something else to do, or to get back to your job. Fortunately, there's a couple things that you can do here. So for those that are on the webinar now, that potentially you manage a cold storage warehouse, or you're an owner of one, and if you do want a free lighting assessment, that's something that we can easily offer you. We can come in and audit your current facility. We can look at your different applications. We can do some custom recommendations and some financial analysis. And if that's something that you're interested in, just click yes there. And if it's not, then you can click no. I'll give you a few seconds to do that.
The Jeopardy theme song here, right?
Jeopardy theme song would be very good right now. So another next step, for anybody on the webinar who you don't own or manage a cold storage warehouse, but you really help people in the industry to implement these types of solutions, right? If you want to help people save energy or reduce heat, and you're interested in a demo of the products that you've seen today, just click yes. If you are an owner or a manager and you're interested in the products as well, you can click yes as well. And that's something that we would love to do, is give you a demo of everything that you've seen here, especially the IBG, as we launched it about 20 days ago. So it's something that we're very eager to tell you about. And unfortunately, I don't have that music for Jeopardy. But what I do have is April again, as she's going to talk through a couple other things for us. She's going to share some stuff, and then she's going to lead us in the Q&A time. I appreciate everybody's time today, and thank you very much. April, what do we got?
Great. Thanks, Justin. You know, as sort of one of those next steps that people can take, I know we have a lot of lighting designers and actually a pretty diverse group of folks who are on the webinar right now. You know, people are always looking to get more information about what's happening. These trends are changing so quickly. So Acuity actually created Acuity Academy, and we're about to launch one for industrial, a section on industrial training as a whole. So you can actually, what I did here was you can just click on that link and go to that page and register for Acuity Academy, get more information. It'll open its own window, so you can still join us for the Q&A that's coming up right now. For those of you who have to jump off early, please take a moment and fill out the survey located on your screen. Should take no more than a minute. Otherwise, if you have a question for Justin, go ahead and type that into the Q&A portion, and we will get to as many as we can. Justin's monitoring those questions right now and seeing which ones we can get to in the time we have allotted. While you guys are frantically typing away, I have a question for you, Justin. As you're out there speaking with a lot of these facility managers and owners, you know, you must be seeing a lot of different setups, a lot of different operations and strategies. What are some of the emerging trends that you're seeing when it comes to lighting a cold storage warehouse?
I think number one is definitely going LED. A good way to think about it is like insulation for your home, right? LED is pretty much just becoming the standard, right? There's zero homes built that don't have insulation in them anymore, and it's almost what you see across the board, especially in cold storage. When you have all this type of information available where you know that you're going to get higher light levels and that you're going to reduce the heat, this offers, especially on the new construction phase, a lot of different strategies that you can do. You know, in the past, you had to account for potentially billions of BTUs to remove, and if you don't have to remove those BTUs anymore because of the lighting, well, now you're probably going to be able to go with a smaller refrigeration load than you needed in the past, and that's going to save you more upfront costs there as well. And so that's a big deal. The other one is integrating into those building management systems to give you that one kind of single pane of glass, right? No longer, you know, people don't want to, especially me, I don't want to log into different software platforms to monitor and analyze different data, right? Mm-hmm. I want to pick up my phone and I want it to do one thing, and I want it to go across multiple, you know, websites and pull that data together.
Great. Be interesting to see if some of these questions come up and mm-hmm. expand on some of that, because I know there are a lot of questions. I always have questions about building management systems. So you went through, a second question I had was, as I can see a whole bunch of questions coming in here, so please go ahead and keep typing those in. You went through a pretty compelling reason why making the switch to LED is so important. You said it was just one of the major trends. So I guess my question is, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about LED and controls that's making decision makers, facility managers, owners, etc., hold off on making the switch to LED? You said it saves money, it saves heat. What's holding them back?
I think, Greg, one of the misconceptions is that upfront cost is way too much to justify over time. You know, maybe even as near as a year ago, you would have potentially, you know, 3 to 5 year paybacks, and so that was kind of one of those areas where the upfront cost was too high to go LED. I would say that's definitely a misconception that's been defeated now with certain solutions that are out there. The other one are controls, right? A lot of misconceptions about what controls can and cannot do. That there's the misconception that really all they can do is this kind of on-off, and then there's nothing else that you can do. So people are really hesitant of getting in there with controls.
Okay. So we have a whole bunch of. I'm looking at one question here. Actually, it's perfect. It's a perfect segue to what you just said, Justin. Some of these facilities they can't turn off their lights ever. Either they have 24/7 shifts or for whatever reason. And they're wondering, can they still use sensors? Can they still use controls if they can't turn off their lights?
That's a big one that we hear a lot, right? Can you still use that if you never want to turn them off? Fortunately, everything you saw there on the control side from the sensors and networking it together, if you don't want it to turn off, it doesn't have to turn off. Our sensors can be programmed very easily to never turn off, and they can just go down to certain dimming levels. The best thing is that your network controls make that easier for you to implement on yourself instead of going up and potentially pushing a button on a sensor. Now you've got it in the palm of your hand. You could say, today I want it down to 10%, but tomorrow I want to maintain it at 50%. So you really have that flexibility of customizing your environment to how you want it. And if you never want them to turn off, then they don't have to.
Great. All right, so go ahead and let's pick another question to answer from our Q&A.
Yeah, so there's a question here around for our Canadian audience there. Does Acuity offer LED luminaires that are CSA approved for 347? Absolutely. In fact, everything that you've seen here has a 347 option on the spec sheet. Sometimes that's called H-volt or something similar on our spec sheet. But yeah, pretty much every single luminaire that you've seen here is going to be approved for 347 operation. Looking through here, what are some other ones?
You answered that one.
Had a nice funny question here. What's my favorite color? Today it's blue.
That's your shirt?
Just in case anybody wants to know that one. Try to keep it engaging, a little bit humorous. So we had a good one. Since heat reduction ultimately leads to energy savings, how do you quantify BTU reduction into energy savings? That is a great question, and one that I will, all of these, side note when I get back to that, all of these we'll answer. We'll kind of have an FAQ of the ones that were mentioned and try to get that out to you. Some of these require a little bit more research than others. This would be one. You can quantify the BTU reduction in energy savings. It's I wouldn't say a complicated formula, but it could certainly be done. The one thing is that the wattage that you reduce is somewhat correlated to the reduction in heat. And so I will take this question on to answer and to get back to the person that asked me, and we'll see if we can come up with a good formula that can quantify those reductions into energy savings that you can then take and show the customer hardcore. The best part is, in my opinion, is especially on the new construction phase, if you know that you're not going to have that amount of BTUs in the space, you're going to be able to specify a different refrigeration load up front. And I guarantee that in a lot of cases could probably even pay for your LED lighting up front. So I had a question as, what is required to run the SensorView software? That's just going to be part of the package of the network controls. And so we use a number of different things. We've got wired and wireless stuff. Essentially, all you're going to need is a luminaire that is equipped to handle the network side. Let's take IBG, for example. You're going to need an IBG that's going to be wireless enabled. And then you're just going to need a gateway. And then SensorView software is actually a free download in a lot of cases with certain abilities on it, and you can certainly make that better. And that's essentially all you're going to need, right? We just commission it really quickly. and then you're off and running with sensor view and your application. So I have one on utility rebates that can cover a good percentage of cost. Can I speak to expected disappearance of rebates as code requirements become more stringent? I can't speak specifically to the disappearance of rebates. I will say that I'll offer a different way of different rebates that are potentially available. So EPACT is something that's a government rebate, not necessarily a utility rebate. That in the industrial side, think cold storage warehouses, anything with a high bay is really an area that can give you a lot of dollars in a job. And that's something that Acuity can help with in certain instances of analyzing a job to see what part of that upfront cost can be covered with an EPACT rebate. Let's see what else we've got.
Actually, we're about out of time, Justin. Do you want to take one more? You think you have time for one more?
Let's look.
Okay. So last call for questions. For those of you who we couldn't get answers to during this time, I know Justin is good at getting back to you with the answers later on via email. So don't be afraid if you didn't get to it on the live webinar. We'll follow up with an email itself.
Nope, that looks like it's...
Okay, well, great. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Before jumping off, please take a moment to fill out the survey that's located on your screen, and we can continue to bring you great webinars in the future and information in the future. Also, if you're interested in looking at some of those, that video case study that we started this webinar with, we have those all on our webpage, www.acuitybrands.com/industrial. We have that, those video case studies that you can take a look at, share with your friends, and all of that. Otherwise, thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of your day.